Hello, my name is Mark. Done a couple of these videos before, but I got to tell you, these things are never scripted. I get the hankering to say something, and I just kind of pull over and do what I think. I found a beautiful spot today. Totally zen out here. I love this place. Where I work, this is one of the only peaceful places there really are. Anyhow, what I thought about today and what I'd like to say a couple words on, whether this is seen by anybody else or not. There's several people that I've seen on Facebook, and my heart goes out to them, but they've had loved ones die in the last few days, and you know, we've all experienced that same kind of thing, and so we all know the pain that goes along with that, and depending on the relationship that we had with that person, it could be a lot of pain, and pretty significant pain. I've been on a long journey that's gone several years. You know, as far as my journey with pain and death and those sort of things, you know, like 30 years ago, my brother died. We were 10 months apart. We spent nearly every waking moment together. Not quite twins, but close. And so when he died suddenly, car accident, my world was destroyed. You know, the pain that came with that, it took a long time for me to come to grips with the fact that he was gone, and number two, place that pain in a place where it wouldn't affect me anymore. So fast forward many years beyond that, probably 8 years ago or so, I went through another death of sorts. It wasn't necessarily a physical death, but it was a divorce, and came on suddenly. I apparently I guess I should have known it was coming. I didn't know it was coming. Obviously, in a situation like that, there's going to be things happening on both sides that were the result of, or well, I guess not the result of, the cause of the divorce. So I don't blame anybody more than I blame myself. But I went from one day thinking everything was okay to the next day, she's gone. She's decided she's moving on. She's going to move out. She's gone, right? She gave her heart to somebody else. I was devastated. It brought back, right? So wherever I had buried the pain of my brother's death, it brought all that back and some, because not only was she there one day and gone the next, you know, I had fully given my heart to this person willingly, and the betrayal, everything that went along with that. So that was horrible. It was excruciating. I spent months and months wallowing in that pain. And so when I'm talking about these other people on Facebook that I see whose parents have died, or a sibling has died, or a cousin, you know, my heart goes out to them, because I understand the pain. I know the pain intimately. And so the reason I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit was there's something that happened to me along the way after the divorce, after the pain of that had subsided. And time is really a great healer of these kinds of things. You know, everybody says it, you know, it's you know, give it some time, and you'll be better. But when you're in the pain, you don't want to hear that kind of thing. I mean, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't help you get out of the pain, regardless of how true the statement is. So time does help. But the thing I've learned between that divorce has been almost 9 years now. What I've learned along the way prepared me for another death that came to my family, and that was the death of my father just a little over a year ago. And after my brother's death 30 years ago, my father and I became really close. Now, my father he came from a long line of people who were emotionally shut down. Men who were kind of manly men who, you don't let your emotions show. They were never really taught how to love somebody or to show that they love someone. It's not that they didn't love the person, they just were never taught how to show it. And so I came from a long line of that. And so after my brother's death, he and I developed a relationship that was beyond, I think, any relationship he had ever had, as far as the openness and the closeness. And certainly it was a fabulous relationship for me. But we became very, very close, and for 30 years, he and I, we were best friends. So, again, a couple of years ago, he died. He had a stroke, and he was doing pretty well for, probably a year and a half, maybe a year and a half or so, I'm guessing. But then he has another series of mini strokes, and they eventually took him. But how I was able to handle that death, as opposed to how I handled my brother's death or quote unquote the death of my marriage, that's what I want to touch on. Because what I had learned after the divorce and through that pain, I began to look for what can help me with this pain. What can help take away this pain from me? And I searched and searched and searched. I searched in the Bible, and most of us who are practicing Christians or what have you know what's there. But again, there was no solace there for me. I didn't find it there. Nothing was taking away the pain from this divorce. And so I started searching other places. And I searched in various different places, but eventually I found some teachings that came from others outside of the Bible. Teachings that came from places where I was told not to look, from pastors and churches and people in the church, that, surely you will be punished if you were to entertain these things. I mean, you're just denying Christ, basically, if you look into the other thing. But what I'm talking about specifically is some of the Eastern religions. I'm talking about Hinduism, perhaps Buddhism, Taoism. And I started searching into these things, like, well, so what is it they're saying? How do they handle these things? What is written, and I found a whole wealth of knowledge there about life in general. I mean, these people had spent thousands of years thinking about life and what it is, and how to live it. And so one of these concepts, to cut it short, was a concept that was completely foreign to me. It was called detachment. And as I began to understand what detachment was, at first I thought, my gosh, detached from everything you love, is that like, am I supposed to say, like, I don't care? Like, how am I supposed to detach from somebody I love, right? I care about them. That doesn't make any sense to me. But the more I got to reading about it and understanding it and committing my mind to understanding the concept of what this is, I began to understand that this concept of detachment didn't mean anything about not caring. And I think that's a major misconception in the Western religions about the Eastern religions regarding this subject. It's not about I don't care. What it's about is I love you so deeply, but if you were to leave or you were to go, I'd still be okay. And I'm going to love you with all the passion and everything that normal love would bring. I'm going to do all those things still. But in and of myself, I'm going to be okay if you're not here. Because one thing is for certain and true is that death comes to everything. There's nothing static in nature. Everything changes. And change is just a normal part of living. And so as I began to understand more about this detachment, it dawned on me that yes, I can love my children, my mother, my siblings, my cousins, my dog, my possessions, everything that I have, my truck, my car, all that kind of stuff. I can love those things, but if something were to happen to them, while I might be saddened about it, I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to be devastated by it. No longer am I going to live by the thought of, I can't make it without you. Because I can make it. And I will make it. I want so much to convey this thought, and I guess the only example I can give you would be the difference between how I handled those deaths, my brother's death and perhaps the death of my marriage, versus how I handled the death of my father. In both cases, with my brother and my marriage, I spent months in inconsolable grief, like a grief of a depth where you don't even want to live. And so I know that, and like I said, it's months of that, agonizing every night on the couch for hours while I'm I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't function. I go to work and I can't get my mind off of it, and there's tears running down my face, and people are asking me why I'm crying, and they don't understand the pain that is within my soul. Just at the depth, it can't get any deeper within me, that kind of pain. And so, as I compare that to the death of my father, here's, I guess, what I want to make sure to tell you is that because of my understanding of detachment and how this concept can help it helped me for sure, and help you in your life too, is even though the relationship with my father had become, we were like this. I mean, we did everything together. We talked for hours on the phone. We went golfing. We did things that my brother only wished that he had done with my father. It was my brother's wish to do these things. And as the main reason I began to do these things in the first place was because my brother wanted so bad to have that kind of a relationship with my father. And my father didn't have that relationship with his father. His father didn't have that relationship with his father. So we wanted to make that different. And I was going to uphold that for my brother in my own life. And that's what I did. But anyhow, so when my father died, I had become very familiar with this thought of detachment. And when he finally died, the first thing I noticed, there was grief initially that, I'm not going to be able to see him anymore. He's not going to be part of this existence anymore. But what I did realize through the understanding of detachment was, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to survive. I'm going to move on. And I'm going to be okay. It's not going to be the same without him. And I accepted the fact that it's not going to be the same. But I'm going to be okay. And beyond that, I thought to myself, instead of focusing on my loss of him and what our relationship was and how that whole dynamic is going to change, I focused instead on, where's he at? What's he doing? And for anybody who has any kind of a religious background and believes in the concept of an afterlife or heaven or anything of that nature, I put my energy into understanding that that's where he is. Right now, as much as we love to golf together, he's there now golfing. He's in a place where there is no sadness. He's in a place where there is no pain. He's in a place where there's none of those things. And so, how can I, and this was my thinking, how can I honor him by wallowing in this grief? Wouldn't it be better for me to contemplate on where he is now and what he's doing now, which is infinitely better than anything that we could experience here in the first place, right? So not only is, because he was half paralyzed from the first stroke, so he couldn't walk very good. Had to have somebody help him bathe. He couldn't use his right arm. He's perfectly whole there. And so I set my mind to understand that and focus on that instead of focusing on myself and my feelings and what I was going through here. Because what I was going through here was going to serve no great purpose other than to bring myself down. And as I said, even though I miss him, I still miss him to this day. How I handled the grief of his death versus how I handled those things in the past is so monumentally different, and it affected myself so much better than what I had previously known, all because of this concept of detachment. And like I said, I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that I loved him any less, but I knew that eventually he's going to die. You know what? I know that my mother's going to die, and I know that someday I'm going to die and leave my children behind. My dog is going to die someday. Someday I'm not going to have the home that I've had forever. And the less that I'm attached to those things mentally, the easier it is to transition through life's changes without this sense of grief or loss that we have when these things happen. Because there's one thing that's guaranteed: change is going to happen. These deaths are going to happen. We're only given, some people are lucky to live 50 years. Some people 50 to 70 years is about all they're going to get. Some people will go 70 to 100 years, but that's it. You're not going to get any more than that. I'm not going to get any more than that. I've always said I'm going to live to 120. I don't know if I want to. Either way, I'm okay with whatever happens. And understanding that this is just the natural part of living is death. Part of our existence here is that's a part of it. And the more that we grow to accept that this is what's going to happen, it doesn't mean that I've resigned myself to not care in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, I think I care more deeply now because you treasure what you know you have, which is only so many moments. And I'm going to spend those moments in certain ways with those people the best I can. You know, distance and time can change how you interact with your family or your friends and that kind of things, but when you're with them, be with them, you know, because they're not going to be here forever. And through this concept of detachment, of not holding on so tightly, not saying, well, if like for a spouse, that if you were to leave me, I would die. Well, I mean, I know that I would feel that way inside, but that's not true. I'm not going to die. As a matter of fact, I could thrive. As a matter of fact, I could, you never know what's going to happen through circumstances. Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? You don't know what's going to happen. And so mentally holding on to the thought that I can't live without you, you're holding on to that so tightly that once it does leave you, because whether through death or through voluntary actions, this is going to happen. And so holding on so tightly is going to cause more pain and more grief. Better, in my opinion, to hold lightly. And should something happen, or should some circumstance take that person from you, going forward with the understanding that I'm going to make it, I'm going to be okay. Life's going to be different. I don't know what life's going to look like. I don't know what the future holds. But I'm going to walk into it anyway. Completely changes the sorrow and the grief and the torment that propagates itself inside your mind. And that's what I learned over this course of the last 10 years, 9 years or so. And I guess that's what I wanted to say in summary, that, you know, I've been through what these people are going through, and it sucks. Oh my God, does it suck. But what I've learned beyond that, through this concept and other concepts, I mean, they all kind of work in conjunction with each other, but this one in particular changed immensely how I dealt with death and how I dealt with a loved one leaving and no longer being part of my life. Because while I did grieve, it was nothing to the depth of what I grieved previously, to those that I held on to so tightly. And I could only tell you my experience in the hopes that, and I'm not trying to diminish what anybody else is going through at all. I mean, like I said before, I know how bad it is. But my purpose here is to tell you that you don't have to grieve like that. Not that grieving like that is wrong. I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying, when you're in the depths of it and you pray to God to help you do something with this pain, and you can't be any lower than what you are. There's a reason that it's like that. And that reason is clinging so tightly to something, and with the thought of, I can't live without you. because you can live without them, or without that thing. My house went up in flames, or I wrecked my car, my prized possession. Well, a car can be replaced, and a house can be replaced, and everything in the house can be replaced. Yeah, there's memories that went up in smoke and all those kinds of things, but you can make new memories. You're not attached to those things to the point where you're going to die. That's the concept I'm trying to relay here. That even though you love all those things, and you enjoy them to the fullest, you don't have to go forward with the thought that I'm going to die if they go away. Because that mentality is causing you suffering that need not be. And as I said, through my dad's death, as I stand back and analyze it, I am so happy that I understood and learned this concept prior to his death, because I would have been devastated again, and I would have been through all those emotions that I had before would have surfaced and come up again. But they didn't. And the difference was my understanding of how to handle these things in life. And as I said, I grieve with those people. I understand. It's a terrible place to be. It's a terrible place to be. So, if anything, I'm not telling you that you're wrong in any way, shape, or form at all. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't feel what you should feel, because your feelings are real. But going forward, understand that there are concepts out there, and especially for my Christian brethren, there are concepts out there that, I don't want to use the word foreign, but are removed from the theology of Christianity. And these things can help you. These things, if only you were willing to look outside the box. You've been told for so long, just as I was, for 30 years, I've been told that don't look there. Don't look at that. Well, I'm telling you here and now that there are concepts and things that you don't have to worship the God they worship to understand a concept like detachment, like hold on loosely. You're not going to hell to learn a subject like that, and it'll benefit your life so greatly. But anyway, my thoughts and prayers to those people. I hope you've understood what I've said. I've kind of rambled. Like I said, none of this is ever scripted. I just speak from the heart when I get the unction to do it. And so I guess I just want to leave you with this parting thought. It's like a song from 38 Special talks about this very concept. Hold on loosely, but don't let go. If you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control. And that's control of your emotions. And so, hold on loosely. I love you. Have a good day.